In the rolling countryside of Suffolk, England, lies the small village of Woolpit. Today, it's a peaceful place of thatched cottages and ancient churches. But nearly 900 years ago, this quiet village became the centre of one of medieval England's most extraordinary and puzzling legends. The story begins in the 12th century, during the reign of King Stephen, when England was torn by civil war and superstition ran as deep as the village wells. It was a time when the boundary between the natural and supernatural seemed thin, and the impossible might just walk out of the forest on any given day. Picture harvest time in Woolpit, around 1150 AD. The fields stretch golden under the autumn sun, and the villagers work with the rhythm of generations. Near the village, ancient wolf pits, deep traps dug to catch the wolves that once terrorized the countryside, dot the landscape like scars in the earth. It was here, beside one of these abandoned pits, that field workers made a discovery that would echo through the centuries. Two children emerged from the depths, a boy and a girl, perhaps 7 and 9 years old. But these were no ordinary children who had simply fallen into the pit. Their skin was green. Not the pale green of sickness, but a vibrant, otherworldly green that seemed to emanate from within. They wore clothes of strange material and unfamiliar cut, woven from fibers no one could identify. The children spoke in a language that sounded like no dialect of English, French, or Latin that the villagers had ever heard. When the frightened workers approached, the children cowered together, their green faces filled with terror and confusion. They seemed as bewildered by their surroundings as the villagers were by them. Our knowledge of this remarkable tale comes primarily from two medieval chroniclers, Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh. Ralph, an abbot at a monastery just 20 miles from Woolpit, wrote his account within decades of the supposed events. William, a respected historian, recorded the story as part of his comprehensive history of England. According to these sources, the Green children were taken to the home of Sir Richard de Calne, a local landowner and knight. Despite the household's efforts to feed them, the children refused all food offered. Bread, meat, vegetables, fruits, everything was rejected with apparent revulsion. For days they ate nothing. The household watched in growing concern as the strange children grew weaker, their already unusual appearance becoming more gaunt. Just when it seemed they might starve, someone brought fresh beans, still in their pods, from the garden. The children's eyes lit up with recognition. They fell upon the beans with desperate hunger, devouring them pod and all. For months, beans were all they would eat, their only sustenance from this familiar food in an alien world. As weeks passed, something remarkable began to happen. The green tinge in the children's skin slowly faded. Whether it was the change in diet, the passage of time, or adaptation to their new environment, their complexion gradually became more natural, more human. Unfortunately, the boy did not survive this transformation. He grew ill and died within the first year, never fully adapting to his new world. Some chroniclers suggest he died of melancholy, pining for something or somewhere he could never return to. The girl, however, proved more resilient. As her skin returned to normal coloration, she began to learn English. Slowly, haltingly, she started to communicate with her caregivers. She learned to eat other foods, to dress in English fashion, to behave as an English child. She was baptized into the Christian faith and given the name Agnes. As she grew to womanhood, she married a man from the nearby town of King's Lynn and lived what appeared to be a normal life. Yet she never forgot her origins, and when pressed, she would tell a story that defied all understanding. According to the chronicles, when Agnes had learned enough English to communicate, she spoke of her origins. She said she and her brother came from a land called Saint, Martin's land, where the sun never shone. Their world existed in perpetual twilight, lit only by a dim, ethereal glow. She described a place where all the inhabitants had green skin like theirs, where the landscape was familiar, yet fundamentally different from England. Across from their land, she said, lay another country where the sun did shine, visible to them across a great river of light. The children had been tending their father's cattle when they heard the sound of bells, beautiful, haunting bells, unlike any they had known. Following the sound, they entered a cave or cavern. They walked through darkness for what seemed like hours, drawn ever-forward by the melodious ringing. When they finally emerged, they found themselves in the brilliant, overwhelming sunlight of our world, beside the Woolpit where the harvesters found them. The entrance through which they had come had vanished, leaving them stranded in a land of blazing light and strange customs. For nearly 9 centuries, scholars, folklorists, and curious minds have attempted to explain the green children of Woolpit. The theories range from the practical to the fantastical, each trying to account for the strange details of this medieval mystery. The malnutrition theory suggests the children were refugees from a nearby area suffering from famine. Severe malnutrition, particularly deficiency in iron and certain vitamins, can cause a greenish pallor to the skin. The children might have been Flemish immigrants, speaking a foreign language, who became lost and disoriented. Their exclusive diet of beans could have been the only food they recognized as safe. The folkloric explanation situates the story squarely in the realm of fairy tales and medieval mythology. The green children could represent fairies or otherworldly beings crossing into our realm. Medieval literature is rich with tales of fairy folk emerging from barrows, hills, and caves, often described as having unusual coloration and strange customs. The arsenic poisoning theory proposes that the children suffered from chronic arsenic exposure, which can cause a greenish tinge to the skin. They might have lived in an area where arsenic occurred naturally in the water supply or where it was used in local industries. This would explain both their coloration and their initial sickness. The extraterrestrial hypothesis is a more modern interpretation, suggesting the children were visitors from another world. Proponents point to the description of their homeland, a place without sun, with strange lighting, and inhabitants of different appearances. The cave they traveled through becomes a metaphor for interdimensional travel. The underground civilization theory proposes that the children came from a subterranean world, possibly connected to the surface by natural cave systems. Their green skin could have been an adaptation to their environment, and their story of a land without sun takes on literal meaning. Understanding the green children requires understanding their time. 12th century England was a world where the supernatural was accepted as part of daily life. Miracles and marvels were recorded alongside mundane events in chronicles and histories. This was also a time of great social upheaval. The anarchy, a civil war between Stephen and Matilda, had torn England apart. Refugees wandered the countryside, foreign mercenaries fought in English fields, and communities were displaced and scattered. Strange children appearing in rural villages might not have been as unusual as it seems to modern eyes. The medieval chroniclers who recorded the tale were educated men, monks, and historians who understood the difference between fact and fiction. That they chose to record this story alongside verifiable historical events suggests they believed it to be true, or at least believed their sources were reliable. What makes the Green Children of Woolpit so compelling is not just the strangeness of the tale, but its persistence. The story has been told and retold for centuries, each generation finding new meanings and explanations. In our modern world, we tend to seek rational explanations for extraordinary claims. We look for the logical, the scientific, the provable. Yet the Green Children resist easy categorization. Every theory that explains one aspect of the story seems to leave others unexplained. Perhaps the truth lies not in any single explanation, but in the story's power to capture our imagination. The green children represent our eternal fascination with the unknown, our desire to believe that the world holds mysteries yet to be solved. They remind us that even in our age of science and skepticism, there are still stories that defy explanation, legends that persist because they speak to something deep in the human psyche. Our need to believe in magic, in other worlds, in possibilities beyond our understanding. Today, the village of Woolpit embraces its strange heritage. A sign marks the location where the children were supposedly found. The village pub is called the Lady in Green, and local artwork celebrates the mysterious visitors from long ago. The Green Children have inspired novels, academic papers, documentaries, and countless retellings. They appear in collections of unexplained mysteries and folklore anthologies. They represent one of England's most enduring legends, a story that bridges the gap between history and mythology. Whether they were malnourished refugee children, victims of poisoning, fairy folk from another realm, or something else entirely, the green children of Woolpit continue to captivate us. They remind us that the past holds mysteries we may never fully understand, and that sometimes the most powerful truths are found not in facts, but in the stories we tell. In the end, perhaps it doesn't matter whether the green children were real or legend. What matters is that for nearly 9 centuries, they have sparked wonder, curiosity, and debate. They have reminded us that the world is stranger and more mysterious than we often allow ourselves to believe. Subscribe for more intriguing real stories.